these things clearly. You can find data that support that position, but you can find data that argue what Professor Petrarca argues, which is effectively the notion that the way in which we deal with things like Sandy Hook is we have armed teachers. So that in case somebody comes in to the classroom and wants to shoot the kid, the teacher whips out her gun and kills the gunman. Okay? And there's that contrary argument as to what will work. It's prevalent. The data doesn't clarify, in my mind, as I looked at it, unequivocally, there's one way or the other way. So I'm left sort of with my own value system. For instance, I do believe guns kill people. Now, someone says, no, people kill people. Of course they do. But look, substitute for the word guns, the word cars. Cars kill people. Yes, they do. Well, but it's really the way people drive. So look at all the constraints we put to try to change the way people drive. You can't drive drunk. We have speed limits. We've changed the sort of paraphernalia inside of a car to protect people. So it's the same sort of issue at play in my mind. You don't have to agree with that, but in my mind. And aesthetically, I see it as an element of a breakdown in order, when it falls on us to protect ourselves. And I regard it as being naive. That is to say, if the state wants to get you, they got so much force, as you sit back there, and look at what's happening with various of these militia groups at different times. You know, they go in, they have an endless amount of firearms. And what happens? The alcohol, tobacco, and firearms go in and kill them all. So it's poppycock that you're going to protect yourself if the state's going after you. So that whole argument holds no water. The state is going to be more powerful. I do. But hey, you don't have to agree with me. You can, you know.
So to your position, how do you explain the record number of deaths in the city of Chicago with the highly regulation?
Well, first of all, you know, if we have separate rules in different states, anybody who wants to get a gun goes out of state. I mean, the most obvious thing. Chicago was located right there. It's a short drive to a whole host of other states where they can go in and buy it. The problems get in with the national differences. That's why, for instance, the cartels send a lot of people to the United States to buy guns because it's harder to buy them in Mexico, so they buy them in the United States to shoot people in Mexico. So you could go to another state, number one. Number two, obviously criminals are going to be able to acquire firearms in their police. The question is to how easily accessible are these. There are also the gun show problems and all these other constraints that exist. But literally what you have in Chicago is you have a set of very vibrant gangs that are going out, buying the guns in other places, legally or illegally, and bringing them and shooting each other. There's no way. I mean, the only way you're going to stop that is send in the police and kill them all. And we have some problems in doing that. Gun control laws are not going to fix that.
A final question for Professor Petrarca. Okay.
Professor, you mentioned you brought different studies to show that the U.S. is just a more violent nation. And therefore, taking away guns is not to stop the violence because people are violent. It doesn't having that make it easier to commit violence and also kill people in bigger numbers. You have a knife, it comes harder to kill.
That's a great question. And it's easily answered empirically. We've had almost a doubling in the number of firearms owned in this country over a period that the per capita murder rate has fallen by half. And so you're right. You think that having more guns would make it the case that more people would end up dying. And I'll give you another study that helps to address one of the prevailing discussions that we're having in this country about assault weapons. Some of you will remember, because you're old enough, we did have an assault weapons ban in this country. It was called the Brady Bill. And that bill was in effect from 1994 to 2004. Guess what? Not only did Columbine fall into that period, in which we had a federal ban on assault weapons, but the number of mass killings being multiple people dying in a single event, went up during the period in which we did have this experiment of the Brady. And as a result of that experiment, President Clinton asked the National Academy of Sciences, arguably one of the most elite groups of academics in the world, to conduct a study on the effectiveness of gun control at reducing homicides and other assaults and things like that. And their conclusion, which to some extent does speak to Professor Schoenfeld's apparently or allegedly neutral point about data messiness, their conclusion was, looking at it's a 328-page report, they looked at hundreds of studies and so forth, their conclusion was there wasn't any evidence to show that there was a connection between the success of gun control laws at reducing the use of firearms in crime. Because remember, there are lots of other contexts in which firearms can be used that don't necessarily result in someone being